So in our initial discussion with Kedar, when we were organizing this webinar, there was a talk about, the kind of work that Corbett Foundation also does. And we discussed that there are maybe two projects that we could possibly look at in having in these webinar series. One of them was on the restoration of grasslands and creating a corridor for the great Indian bustard in Kutch. But at this point of time, the webinar that we are all here together for is to discuss about, the forest restoration experience that Kedar and the team had in central India, where they've been doing restoration over 2,500 hectares of land in Kana and as well as in Bandhavgarh National Parks, and both along with the Forest Department. And I think it's a great example to kind of learn or understand how we engage with the Forest Department as we go forward in our restoration projects. This, I would like to invite Kedar. Kedar, if you could, share your screen and come online, and we can start with the webinar then. Thank you.
Thank you, Arjun, and thank you, Mandeep, for this opportunity. I'm extremely grateful to Ecological Restoration Alliance for having me for this webinar. I'm going to share some experiences that we have had, the Corbett Foundation has had in restoring some degraded forest areas in Madhya Pradesh. As we go along, we'll be talking about how we have done it, why we have done it, and what kind of challenges we have encountered, and how we have overcome those challenges to the best of our abilities. Uh, we won't go into the basics of why forest restoration is needed, because we all know that India's forests are degraded in many areas, and therefore restoration efforts are essential. Uh, Having said that, I would like to share my screen and start with the presentation. Once again, thank you very much for inviting me, and thanks to all the participants who have joined this webinar from all across. Thank you for your precious time. So I'm merely presenting this work that the Corbett Foundation team has done. The names of my team members is reflected here. Well, this is just again a representation of the team. We are a large team, and a lot of people have contributed towards whatever work we have done with Madhya Pradesh Forest Department in terms of forest restoration. Firstly, the acknowledgements. We are extremely grateful to our long-standing partner, the Madhya Pradesh Forest Department, with whom we have been working since 2009 in Madhya Pradesh, in Bandhavgarh and Kana. Eventually, we have started working in other areas, Satpura and Kuno, and the corridor areas between Kana, Bandhavgarh, and Kana, Pench, and Bandhavgarh, Sanjay Dubri. This work wouldn't have been possible without the support from all the donor agencies I've listed here. Their support has been extremely precious, and especially so because support coming in from donor agencies, especially in CSR space, for any kind of conservation work is not very common. Uh, uh, and therefore, I'm very grateful to all these agencies who have supported our work. And last but not least, all the local communities whose participation in restoration or any kind of conservation work in India is absolutely essential. And we have received good support from the community, and that also ensures the sustainability of any kind of projects we do, especially in the restoration space. So this model is we work on the land which is which is under the jurisdiction of the Madhya Pradesh Forest Department. So there are we have worked, as Arjun has stated, we have worked in Kana Tiger Reserve Buffer, Satpura Tiger Reserve Buffer, Bandhavgarh and Sanjay Dubri. There is a wildlife corridor, which is a well-established corridor listed by the Wildlife Institute of India. And there we have worked in North Schedule Forest Division, which is not a wildlife division, however, has a good presence of tigers and other wildlife wild animals. So we typically identify such areas with the forest department and uh, for restoration purpose. And we started this work in 2017-18 when we started actually working, diversifying our work in Bandhavgarh and Sanjay Dubri corridor. We realized that a lot of area is extremely degraded and was negatively affecting the wildlife there. And uh, a lot of talks have happened. We ourselves have been promoting restoration till then, but then we thought that we must demonstrate something that that will give us an idea whether it works or not. So we started with a very small patch, 5 hectares only, without any financial support from any organization, and we experimented with it, and we thought of felt that yes, it works. And with this little bit of confidence that we got, we started pitching in for larger projects and to larger funding agencies, and we were fortunate in receiving support from Jet Privilege in the initial stages, and thereafter Axis Bank and Westbridge and so on. Uh, what we essentially do is identify the land which is under Maharashtra Madhya Pradesh Forest Department, and we sign a tripartite agreement with the department, ourselves, and the local community committee. So it could be Gram Vikas Samiti or Eco Vikas Samiti or Vanasuraksha Samiti, depending on the forest jurisdiction types that are there. And typically, a project is pitched for about 5 years because for restoration to be really to work on a restoration project, we need at least about 5 years time. Ideally, much more. 7 or 10 years would be even the best. However, there is limitation of how much fund and for what duration under CSR can be given. So there are limitations in this, but ideally, this is the minimum is 5 years, and we take commitment of even if we don't receive any funding, we will still continue to maintain that area for 5 years. Uh, and there is a strong community participation because most of the times community feels completely left, alienated from any kind of conservation program because it suddenly becomes a no-go area for them. However, in this model, they are free to use this area in the sense they can come and harvest the grass. And whenever the forest, the trees grow and are ready for fruiting, they can always collect the NTFP as well. So these are some of the long-term impacts that we envisage from these works. Of course, recreating forest ecosystems is the one primary objective that we have, which includes everything from removal of invasive species to planting of uh, native tree and bamboo in the area so that the whole area will look like a mixed forest eventually after 10, 15 years. Biodiversity will definitely come back, and that's what we all want. We provide as much habitat, wilderness habitat to the biodiversity as is possible. Uh, as I said, all these areas are critical tiger areas, and therefore, having any restoration work, you know, uh, 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 kind of repairing any of the damaged forest is a priority. It will definitely help tigers, and as we have seen, and you would see in the presentation later, that tigers have started coming back to these areas where we have worked, and that's such a great boost that we have received. Uh, and there are several other benefits, improving the soil quality, increasing the water table. Because we are also creating rainwater harvesting structures, carbon sequestration, of course. When you have trees, obviously, and grasses, you will have good amount of carbon sequestration. Uh, and because we allow people to harvest the grass, uh, there are and stall feed their cattle. There are less number of cattle going into the forest areas for free grazing, and that creates, I mean, that prevents actually any kind of human-wildlife negative interaction. Because when cattle venture into the forest, tigers or leopards prey on them, and then the whole vicious cycle of human-wildlife negative interaction starts. And so this is a very good example. This can set as a very good example for reducing such conflict situations. Reducing the grazing pressure will, of course, improve forest quality elsewhere. That's another important, effect that we have as a part of the restoration work. When you stall feed the cattle, feed them with good grasses. Obviously, their potential, their productivity also increases. So there is a benefit to the livestock owners, whether they are using it in the farms or whether for milking purposes. And last but not least, a very important aspect is that all this will contribute to India's, commitments to Born Challenge. And just in case somebody doesn't know what Born Challenge is, you can see the highlighted blue part that is there. So there are some huge commitments we have done as a country, and any effort will definitely be a part of this larger commitment that our country has made. So this is how the different areas we have taken up from year wise, the hectares area in hectares, how many invasive species have been removed in terms of tons, saplings planted. So all this data is there with us, and so as Arjun had stated before, about 2,500 hectares so far we have taken up and completed the projects as well in some areas. And the red figures that you see in this is actually work in progress. So there are some areas that we have taken up last year in 2024 in a new project, and the work is going on. Therefore, those figures do not, tally in the final total that has been given. But all these are very important tiger landscapes, and more than tiger landscapes, I think they are excellent biodiversity areas, and therefore the restoration should not only benefit tigers or iconic species, but definitely should also benefit the centipede or the butterfly or spiders. All this biodiversity also should benefit out of this. Uh, this is the kind of this is Lantana. As I mean, people might think that it's a very dense forest of Kanha Tiger Reserve buffer. However, this is dense proliferation of lantana in a buffer area. And this is the extent of degradation that has happened in many of our forest areas. And all this has been the result of free grazing and cutting of trees by local communities for their use, whether it is cutting for timber or for firewood purpose or for whatever reason. Understand the scale of this degradation is humongous, and therefore all of us need to take part in this and help the forest department as much as we can, because this is again for a larger interest of our wildlife that we are trying to save together. This is North Scheduled Forest Division. Here also you can see the lantana clumps that were uprooted, and this is the kind of area that we take up. I mean, this was once upon a time a forest. Okay, it wasn't a grassland. If you think that we are looking at a grassland or degraded grassland, no, it was a forest definitely. And this is the state of this forest before we took it up for restoration in 2022. Again, a forest land in North Scheduled Forest Division. So uh, a lot of such patches still exist, and the scope for taking up more and more projects in this area uh, is large, and we hope that support will be available from corporate sector and other institution donors to take up more projects. And in fact, more organizations should join hands, and because the scale is, as I said, is huge, and we all need to work together to achieve the restoration effort. So these lands are identified with the forest department. We actually look at the land maps and what kind of plots are there, and survey numbers, and everything is recorded. And once we take it up, we identify it with GPS because we need to know exactly how much area we are taking up. Depending on the funding scale that we have, we would, lessen or increase the survey that the area that we have to take. This is a 100-hectare plot, by the way, which is marked in green. So local community is engaged in any kind of labor work. That is a norm that we have followed from day one. We have made it a point that we will not engage any labor from outside of this area. I mean, not even outside the village, because the village that will ultimately benefit from restoration work, those villagers are only included as a part of our labor force. And so from removal of lantana to setting up of fences, everything is done by the local villagers. Here you can see the pits are being dug. Since it's a forest area, we have to follow certain norms, and forest department has certain guidelines as to how many pits can be dug at what distances and so on. So we follow those guidelines wherever it is prescribed that way. Uh, and once that is done, uh, the area is fenced. Now that's very important to have the area fenced using the chain link fencing. You can see the chain link fencing in the orange box below, uh, and the trees were planted inside this plot. Excuse me. So if you don't have this chain link fencing, obviously, there are livestock freely grazing around, and they are liable to come inside and, feed on the newly planted saplings, and that would be disastrous for any restoration work. And therefore, this fencing is needed, and that's the major cost actually that we incur. But that's necessary, as I said, to ensure that plantation is successful. So the next comes ordering of the saplings, which we order from the local forest department nursery, or if there is a shortage of those saplings from this nurseries, obviously we also take saplings from privately owned nurseries. However, the condition is that it has to be of a particular height and, of course, native. So no non-native species is ever planted by us. In this picture, in the bottom, you may see some teak trees in the background, in the right side. Now, these were planted much before by the forest department themselves, and those have come up, in fact, after the lantana was removed. So till the lantana was there, it was so dense and high that we did not even know that there were, other trees that were planted long ago. Anyway, so whatever was planted, we never uprooted it. So those areas may have some teak trees also, which is actually not native of this area. So just a glimpse of before and after, just 1 year of protection and 1 year of good rains and good maintenance. The result is phenomenal. I mean, the first thing that you see is the profuse growth of lovely grass that comes up, and none of the grass seeds were served by us. I mean, we did not, sow any grass seeds. It has come up on its own, uh, and that's beautiful. Then along with the grass, you also see some shrubs coming up because, as I said, lantana suppresses the growth of other plants, and once the lantana is removed and you have favorable conditions for growth, then all these native grasses and shrubs, they come up. As I said before, the local villagers, they harvest grass. And this is, you can see, I mean, regularly women will come in or men will come in and collect grasses as per their needs. Uh, uh, Obviously, to feed the livestock, some of the grasses are also collected so that they can do some thatch work in their huts. So, I mean, that is also permissible as long as we are harvesting the grass and not really sending any livestock inside. So just to give you an idea about the quantum of grass collected just from a 100-hectare plot was 120 to 160 ton grass is harvested annually in North Schedule Forest Division. And that's quite a bit. And uh, I mean, this is happening every year. Here you can see the difference in 5 years. Okay, this was the first plot that we took up in 2018. uh, uh, with the funding received from Jet Privilege Private Limited, and you can see the result in 5 years. It's excellent. Uh, and we have been monitoring it even after that. And let's see how it is now. So this is again a different area in Kana, but a 3-year-old plantation, which where you can see that grasses and shrubs and other trees and bamboo are coming up. The success rate of all these plantations is around 70 to 90%. In some areas, we have seen the success rate falling up to 70%, but not below that. And in some areas, most of these areas would have about 80, 85, and the best success rate is 90%. Wherever we have seen that the mortality of plants occurs in the first 2 years, we have immediately replaced those plants with new saplings of either the same species or different species, whatever is available at that point in time. Now, this image was taken just a few days ago when I went there in the the first uh, plantation plot of 2018. Now, this is the state of this plot right now. Uh, Although it's almost leaf fall is started, and you can see everything is yellow. However, the denseness of all the trees and the shrubbery and bamboo is superb. And we are regularly seeing pug marks of leopards and tigers and sloth bears and all other indirect signs of these large mammals using these areas. And it is still fenced, and this fence is not really stopping those animals from coming in. So animals are very smart. They can, I mean, wild animals are very smart. They can really find a way to get inside these plots as and when they want. But this is definitely stopping the livestock, which is good for us. We did not stop at just planting the trees. We wanted to recreate an ecosystem. I mean, it's an attempt of recreating an ecosystem. So we also using the contours of the land, we tried to create some water bodies, and we used the soil that was removed from some part of that same plot and made some earthen bunds that ensured that the rainwater was harvested. And this has really been magical because this water has attracted a lot of wildlife, and you can see a lot of birds around. Even ruddy shelduck has been recorded this year, first time in all these 6 years of restoration work that we have done. So, and I'm sure as the restoration plots mature into denser forest areas, I mean, you'll have much more for us to see and record from there. Uh, I mean, Lantana removal becomes a major part of restoration work. I mean, at least in central India, because that's one of the uh, most, uh, populous, if I say so, weed or invasive species that we have. And so once we remove the lantana, we also quantify how much we have removed. And by doing some sampling techniques, we kind of estimate the lantana that we have removed. And so we leave it open for the villagers to use it, and villagers are quickly taking away the lantana, using it for biofencing. Of course, the biofencing made of lantana doesn't last long, but at least they will last for about 2 years. And but till that time they can use it whatever, and then lantana, dried lantana is also used as fuel wood. Now, local community participation is extremely crucial. So before we start any such work, we regularly have meetings with the local community, try to explain them why we are doing it. And firstly, we tell them that this is not forest department which is doing it, but an NGO which is doing it. Because local community, unfortunately, for whatever reasons, they have some differences always with the forest department. And so therefore, it is necessary for us to bring them to a level where they understand the need for such restoration work. And once that happens, there is a community buy-in, and when they start getting the benefit of harvesting grass and everything, and then they definitely want to support this. And that's what our experience is. I mean, we have not had any unpleasant experience of people playing mischief or vandalizing or doing something to the restoration plots that we have. Uh, We have also involved local Baiga and Bond women by forming their self-help groups and involving them in raising nurseries for native saplings, native tree saplings and bamboo. And it's something that they also earn. We it's not something that they raise the sapling and we take it from them. Even if we take it from them, we buy. And there is a scheme of government, Madhya Pradesh government, where the Gram Panchayats also buy saplings. And these SHGs have earned a lot of money. I mean, more than 1.7 lakhs have been earned by them. And all this goes into their bank accounts, and they are free to, distribute the money as they want it. Uh, As I said, the labor force is always the local community, and this is the amount that we have paid so far through these projects to the local community, and that's as per the rates that are prescribed by the government, and it's very fair process. Their attendance is recorded by our people, and based on their attendance, they are paid, and the local committee, eco development committee or Vanagram Samiti, they play a major role in preparing maintaining these records and preparing the bills and vouchers, and the support has been really good from all quarters, and therefore people are also keen to take part in any kind of labor work that we need. Of course, we have to uh, understand that people need their time to do their farming work. There are festivals that are there throughout the year, so we have to time the plantation in a way that all this is not affected, so that everyone's participation is also there, and we are also not late in doing the plantation, because monsoon is the time when plantations must happen, and if we lose that initial 1 month or so, then the plantation success will be affected. So rewilding is the effort actually. As I said, we have done the restoration, and now we expect that the whole ecosystems come back to life. So we are trying to rewild things. On the top left, you can see one of the water bodies that we have created. You can also see some reeds that have come up. Hopefully, these reeds will attract. They are attracting rather, water hens and other such. Even some sandpipers can be seen in along these banks of these water bodies. Uh, we are keeping a record of all the birds that we see, insects that we see, arachnids and everything. And you can see the camera trap in the left bottom picture, where we are hoping that we get some images of mammals, because they are nocturnal, and only at night time we would get to see them through our camera traps. Indirect signs are also recorded, like bug marks and scats and pellets and stuff like this. So this is what has happened after restoration. Uh, we are yet to work well in terms of recording the herpetofauna, but mammals, insects, arachnids, and birds is something that we have been seeing increasing in numbers as we see the sites are maturing into some natural ecosystems. These are some of the mammals that we have seen so far in the plots. They are all inside the plots. Uh, I mean, hyena, uh, small Indian civet, Indian wildcat, Asiatic wildcat, tiger, of course, sambar, jungle cat, chinkara, jackal, wild boar, and spotted deer. See, all these animals have come inside. You can see the fence in some of the pictures, and how these animals have managed to come inside the plots. And we really don't know. I mean, they're finding their own way, and we are happy about it. So grasses, 23 species of grasses have been recorded from all our restoration sites across. Uh, and none of the places we have actually sowed any grass seeds. However, now that the grasses are there, we are collecting the grass seeds for future plantation work, because we are also working on some aspects of stall feeding projects in certain areas, which I'll briefly talk about later. And these grasses will be useful in restoring other areas. So this is a stall feeding project we have initiated in Kana Tiger Reserve buffer, 3 villages of buffer zone. This was started about 4 years ago, and this is purely for stall feeding of livestock. We wanted to experiment whether the villagers are keen to accept stall feeding as a way of feeding their livestock, their cattle, rather than free grazing in the forest areas, because all the cattle in all these villages will straight away go to the forest every day and come back after grazing. So that is the usual, way of how to feed the cattle, and this has been happening for years and years together. And this is also the result of why many of the areas in the buffer zones are degraded because of extreme overgrazing. Because cattle, they tend to graze in, a particular area for a longer time, and therefore they're walking regularly and eating of grass. Everything affects the natural regeneration in that area, and then that also gives rise to some invasive species coming up. So we experimented with 3 villages. 30 acres of cultivable land was taken on rent. We are paying rent to the owners of this land, and we are growing maize and berseem and napier grass for only to feed the cattle. And these are nutritious fodder we have selected, and which is acceptable everywhere as a fodder to feed the cattle. And villagers are happy because they are coming and collecting the fodder. They are getting green fodder without any hassles. We have also seen some benefits of not sending the cattle to the forest. The cattle, because we also have a veterinary program going on in these villages, and therefore we can monitor the health of this cattle. Uh, because they are not going to the forest, there is less chances of firstly attacks by tigers or leopards. Secondly, uh, tick infestation is quite less. So the health is overall better. Because they are feeding on nutritious fodder, obviously their milk yield is higher. We have also experimented with giving high milk yielding cows in some households in lieu of unproductive cattle that they had. They have sold it off. So they are also feeding those cattle with this fodder. At the same time, they are also earning more because we have established some businesses. They are selling milk, making curds, even ghee, and there are a lot of resorts around. So they are getting a ready-made market to sell all these products, and they are making decent money out of it. So, I mean, this is done on a very small scale, only 30 acres in 3 villages. However, it is a model for demonstration. If there are people ready to replicate elsewhere with some funding that people can get, I think this will work. And we have seen it work in our areas in Kana, then why can't it work in maybe Tadoba or any other tiger landscape of India? So these are certain things that have worked in our favor. Actually, why it has worked for us. First and foremost, the institutional support from the Madhya Pradesh Forest Department is phenomenal. Uh, I will place on record that Madhya Pradesh Department is one of the most proactive forest departments we have ever worked with. And the best thing is they also have a policy that allows CSR and CER and private funding for plantation. So they have a policy which accept funds for plantations. They are ready to sign MOUs with organizations who are implementing these projects, and therefore things become very easy. Otherwise, it can be quite a bureaucratic challenge if such kind of policy doesn't exist. And I think other forest departments of other states, they can definitely take this as an example of what can be done, because CSR uh, spending is huge, and only about 30 to 40% is being used of what actually can be spent. So there is a huge gap of good projects that uh, corporate sector would like to fund. And if we demonstrate well that such projects can be taken up not only because it fulfills their commitments of planting trees rather than planting any roadside trees anywhere. It's better to take up forest areas which are already degraded, plant trees, protect them. It will give manifold benefits, not just having tree that is growing up, but carbon sequestration, biodiversity benefits, everything. So I think this is a win-win situation, and I would appeal to uh, all corporate sector representatives to approach Madhya Pradesh Forest Department or forest departments in the respective states and take up such areas for plantation and or rather restoration and rewilding in the coming future. And we implement our projects directly. We do not depend on any third party to implement. We have teams. We have developed our team's capacity to deliver such projects, but we have limited teams, so we can only take a project that we can. I mean, that we can chew and not. We can't take up more than what we can actually chew. So the third thing is local community connect. We have been working, as I said, in this area since 2009, and there is some good amount of rapport that we have developed with the community because we have worked with them on livelihood issues and veterinary health, even uh, human health. I mean, there were some programs initially that we provided primary healthcare facilities to the local villagers in these areas, and therefore this connect has helped, and that trust is already built. That somebody who is working for us for so many years is coming with us with a proposal. I think they will also see some value in associating with such proposals. I think it's very important for organizations to realize that local community connect is extremely important if conservation has to happen. Uh, so yeah, so funding from corporate and institutional donors, yes, we were uh, successful, or should I say lucky, to get support from the organizations that we have mentioned, that I listed in the beginning of the presentation. That we are grateful to them. I mean, those who have worked I mean, trying to get CSR funds would have realized that it's not easy to convince corporates in giving funds for wildlife conservation because there is a general tendency that results are expected immediately. In this case, the results are slow. So it's necessary that the corporates that have supported their boards must be convinced that supporting a project like this is a long-term investment in carbon sequestration and many other benefits. So we cannot expect the results in 2 or 3 years. We must be there for at least 5 to 7 years. So some corporates have even have started considering that they can support long-term projects. And I'm glad that if this kind of discussion is happening in the boardroom, I mean, this will be a game changer for wildlife conservation work and such kind of restoration work in the near future. Rainfall has been pretty good in these areas, and that's very, very crucial. If there is a drought season for 1 or 2 years, I hope not, but if it happens, then obviously the new projects will be affected. But so far, it has worked well. In fact, sometimes the rainfall is so heavy that we have to deal with the excess water situation. But yeah, it's better to have more rains than not having any rains. Uh, Availability of labor from nearby villages has been quite good. Uh, Rapport has helped, and the support received from the local community is really praiseworthy. But there have been challenges, and when we approach 20 funding agencies, then maybe 2 or 3 accept our proposals, or we can at least talk to them about what we are trying to do. So even in case of local community support, a lot of groundwork has to be done. A lot of times we have to meet them, make them understand. They should not get the feeling that we are coming there to talk on behalf of the forest department of, not sending cattle to the forest and so on and so forth. Because this again alerts them, and they can get into the mode of non-cooperation. So we have to deal with them in a different way and tell them that this is for your benefit, and it is indeed for their benefit. I mean, once they start the project reaches about 1 or 2 years, they see their benefit themselves. In fact, there are villagers now who have actually talked to, we have involved them in talking to other villages where we are taking up new projects. So their experience of how it has been working with on this project is helping us in getting new projects. Uh, Support from local forest departments staff sometimes may be a bit difficult because uh, they may not understand the reason why we are doing it. But again, by talking to them regularly, now that we have many demonstration projects in various stages of restoration, so they can see for themselves uh, how it benefits. What is the ultimately it's the forest department land, and it's uh, their responsibility again of protecting the forest and keeping the forest intact as it is. So it is in their interest. Somebody is doing it for them through funding, by someone else. So it's a win-win situation. Sometimes there is some challenges that we encounter, but we address that. Rainfall, as I said, so far it hasn't happened, but this could be a problem. And to deal with this problem, we have also, as a part of the projects, we also install solar powered pumps, which ensure that water is available at least, starting from March, April, June, May, and June, till the time it rains. So the last summer, 3-4 months, watering of these plants is necessary. Or if there is any gap, even after the monsoon starts, say about 15 to 20 days, and if we see the soil is cracking up and drying up, so we definitely use these solar water pumps to water the plants. So this is necessary. These investments are necessary if we want to ensure that the the restoration and the plantation done succeeds. Sometimes sufficient saplings are not available, and we have faced this problem many times. So we have to try and get saplings from many places. Sometimes we have gone as far as outside of that landscape beyond Jabalpur and all, and got the saplings. But so that's why we have now started developing our own nurseries with the help of the local community, so that there is no shortage of saplings at least, and we will get the saplings of the species that we want and in good condition. Uh, Resurgence of invasive species is the problem, and therefore, once we have removed it, we should not assume that after about once we have removed the lantana, it won't come back. So we have seen the lantana coming back in second year, third year as well, but the efforts of removing the lantana in the year 2 and year 3 are much less than what it was in year 1. But we have to do this continuously. And still, because lantana is everywhere. It may not be there in the plot that we restored, but it's everywhere. So, birds eat the berries of lantana, they will come and defecate here, and the new, plants will grow. So this is an ongoing process, and therefore, long-term maintenance will certainly help in controlling the spread of invasive species as much as we can. Well, I think this is the last slide now, and just a glimpse of how it was and how it is now. This is the first plot we were restored in 2018. We started in 2018, and now what is the condition? So, with persistent efforts, restoration will succeed, and we are quite happy with the work that we have done. It is on a small scale. However, we have demonstrated many things, and most of the projects that we have implemented are scalable and replicable. So we are very happy to share our experience. In fact, invite or other organizations, interested people to come and see the project sites for yourself, and talk about it to people whom you know in the other states in forest departments, so that they can take up some work like this and help India achieve its bond challenge target very soon. Thank you very much. I am happy to take any questions that you may have. Over to you, Arjun and Mani. Thank you.
Thank you, Kedar, for sharing that. And I think, it's amazing to see the kind of breadth of work that you've done, the ways you've engaged different stakeholders and brought them on board in trying to take up restoration in these areas. Um, so first of all, thank you so much for this. Um, I think there are a lot of questions that are there on the chat, and I am guessing that we won't be able to cover them in 10 minutes. So I would request that if we can stay on a little bit longer, if that's okay with you, Kedar.
I'm absolutely
Uh,
fine, no problem.
yeah. So there's a lot of curiosity, and I'll hand it over to Mandeep. I think, Mandeep, if you could just,
Shall I stop sharing my screen?
yeah, you can stop sharing your screen. Yeah, Mandeep, over to you.
Yeah. Yeah, thanks, Kedar, first of all, for explaining your process in such detail and making restoration look so good. And great to see so many different coming together, the social engagement part of it, and using uh, human health as a trust building measure. We don't generally hear of things outside of restoration in restoration projects, but it was so nice to see that. And personally, as somebody who loves centipedes and wanted a pet centipede at one point, thank you for not ignoring the smaller, less charismatic species. So yeah, I think we'll open it up for questions. We have some very interesting ones lined up, and we'll take them one by one. So our first question is from Divya, who's asking what kind of monitoring are you carrying out, especially to measure the changes in vegetation itself? And then her second question is, while we say that these efforts can contribute towards India's global commitments, are these efforts counted by the government? And if so, how?
Okay, so the first question first. When we do the vegetation, we are doing vegetation sampling plots, and that's how we look at how the plants that we have planted have grown. At the same time, the new plants have come up on its own. So it's that's how we and this is being regularly done by walking transaction also that data is recorded. Uh, the second part is, yes, I mean, whatever we have done, it's in the knowledge of the forest department, and we as an NGO that cannot directly, uh, you know, do anything in getting that entire data into the larger scheme of things. However, we know for sure that the forest department is doing it, and so we are assuming that this efforts that whatever has been done and other efforts of the forest department, I'm sure, are going into the targets that we have set for ourselves. So I hope I have answered that question.
Yeah, thanks, Kedar. Thanks, Divya. Actually, so Amitabh had a follow-up question, a related question to that. His question is there any formal methodology that you use to identify conservation area prioritization? And do you set target metrics for the success of the projects?
Okay, so the first thing is, yeah, as I said, we are working in either tiger reserves or corridors identified by the Wildlife Institute of India. So definitely these are areas which are of high priority, high conservation priority. And so this is how the areas are selected in the first place. And sorry, what was the second question?
Just give me a second.
You set target metrics for the success of the
Oh
projects.
yeah. So as I said, the funding agencies they themselves set the target metrics. What's the kind of success rate of those plantations that we have done. I mean, mostly people are interested in knowing how many plants have survived, how many trees have survived. And so that we have to maintain, and that's one of the major target metrics that we have. Apart from that, as I said, we regularly monitor the biodiversity. We walk transects and keep camera traps, and so we know right from year 1 to year 5 and even beyond that how much and what kind of species we keep on seeing. And I think that is where the whole uh, I should say success is evaluated. Success or not success is evaluated. So this is what we are doing so far.
Thanks, Kedar, for that. And thanks, Amit. We have a bunch of Lantana related questions. So Sahana and Atulya basically asked if they were curious about the re-emergence of the plant. So Sahana was asking if there's been a re-emergence, if you've seen a re-emergence of the plant after it's been removed. And Atulya had a related question, which is what prevents the lantana from coming up before the forest canopy, the restored forest canopy itself takes over.
So, as I said, when we pitch the project, we also pitch for not only the plantation but also the maintenance. So 5 years, there is a cost that covers the maintenance of the plot, and and maintenance includes removal of lantana, which is kind of reemerges there, or any other invasive species. So that's regularly done and has to be done. Otherwise, it will not be successful. So at least for first 3 years, this is extremely crucial that we remove all the lantana or any other invasive species that we see in that area. After that, also the lantana comes up. Even after the plot that we started in 2018 and 2022, we handed over to the forest department. If you go to the plot, you will see some lantana. So now we are in the process of getting some funds allocated to removal of that lantana, but it uh, on a very small scale. I mean, as compared to what it was before. So it may be just a job of 5 to 6 days or maybe 10 days of some few labor working and then removal of lantana. But this will never go. We must understand this, and it will have to be, removed on a regular basis. And that responsibility ultimately has to be taken up by the forest department, because as an NGO, we cannot go on taking responsibility of these plots because there's shortage of funds and manpower. But at least we bring it down to the scale that it is manageable. That's what I can say.
Thanks, Kedar, for that, and also thank you for your commitment to a site and lantana removal long after the funding ends. So thanks for that. I think from the participants, Vaishnavi had a follow-up question about lantana. Firstly, she remarks that lantana, though invasive, it supports biodiversity too, like small birds, bees, butterflies, etc. Her question is, does removing all plants affect their biodiversity as well? Affect their diversity as well?
I agree that lantana also supports birds and bees and other insects. It's one of the excellent plants to be around for photographing birds and butterflies. But we have to look at the larger picture. Uh, by removing that plant, I mean, we can see a lot of other bushes that come up. And those bushes will also have, flowers, and they will also attract bees and butterflies and other insects. So we should not uh, I mean, ideally, that invasive plant should not be there. It's also hepatotoxic to mammals. I mean, spotted deer, there are so many records of spotted deer falling ill, and even death of spotted deers and other, I think even sambar deer in some areas where they were forced to eat lantana because of non-availability of other palatable species. So it's a huge problem, and therefore it must be removed. There are alternatives. I mean, birds and butterflies, if they don't eat lantana berries, they are not going to die. They will find enough to eat if we have a mixed forest and a variety of other shrubs and bushes available for their feeding purposes.
Thanks for clarifying that, Kedar, and thanks, Vaishnavi, for the question. I think lantana and other invasive species are, they're always subject of debate, especially in our community. But moving on to a more
And one more thing.
yes.
One more observation is wherever there are lantana, there are more attacks on livestock and even on human beings, because the dense thickets of lantana also provide shelter to tigers and leopards and bears and uh, wild boars. So that is our own observation. We have been monitoring tiger kills, kills of livestock by tigers and leopards in Kana landscape and even in Corbett landscape for many years, and this is a clear correlation between them. So it's not advisable to have such invasive species around.
Thanks, Kedar. I actually had a follow-up question. Since you said that the plant Lantana is now offering shelter to tigers and bears. Actually, you know what? No, sorry. Yeah, I'll just ask you later. Okay, so we
Sure.
can move on. Yeah, I just realized that it's going to be a very long question, so we can ask later. I can ask you later. Yeah, zooming out a bit, Dipendra had a question about objectives. So he's asking, what was your main objective for forest restoration in your particular area? And part of his question is, was it grassland restoration or corridor restoration or degraded area restoration?
So our objective was obviously, since we are working in that area, we did not take up the restoration work and start working in the area. It was the other way around. Since we were working in that area for many years, we realized that there are so many patches of forests once upon a time, which were forests are now completely degraded. And therefore, the objective was to restore that forest ecosystem and a mixed forest ecosystem. Even when we do the plantation in the photographs, you might have realized that we never planted trees the saplings very close to each other so that it becomes a very thick forest, because that's not the type of forest that Central India supports. It's all most of the time it's dry deciduous and forest that has enough space in between trees, and there is enough opportunity for the local grasses and shrubs to grow. And that was the whole purpose of doing the plantation in that fashion. And the results are being seen. I mean, we are seeing several shrubs which we never planted have come up there, and that's the whole. I mean, recreating a forest ecosystem. What else I can say? And that once you have that in place, obviously your entire biodiversity can come. As you can see, we have records of so many mammals, and I'm saying not only mammals, but we are in the process of documenting even lesser fauna. Uh, to the best of our abilities. If any of you are have expertise in particular taxa, please let us know, and we'll be very happy to uh, take your help in documenting other species that would be there in that area. So, yeah, did I answer the question, or is there anything remaining?
Dipendra, maybe you can unmute yourself, and if you if you're if you want to ask a follow-up question, I guess it was answered. Kedar, I actually had since you spoke of forest restoration and that being your goal, looking at the pictures of the planting in the pits being dug, I was curious about whether there's a reasoning in how you choose the pitting scheme. I know that you said that the forest department rules dictate the pitting scheme, but do you have some control over that? And if there's some kind of thinking that goes into what plant goes where, or how far apart they're placed?
Yeah, so as I said, it's a forest department norm that we have to follow, but we do not dig pits everywhere. So we deliberately keep patches open where no pits are dug, and it's open for the natural regeneration of whatever can come up there. So that helps in kind of breaking that monotony of just having trees and having also other things as grasses and shrubs. And when we choose the plants, it's randomly picked up. So it's not that one species is planted in a row. Again, that will create a plantation effect after a few years, and that's not what we want. So it's randomly picked up by the local people, the villagers who are engaged in doing that. And there are people, our people are there to monitor when the saplings are being planted. So we ensure that random sapling plantation happens so that a mixed forest is created eventually.
Got it. Thanks a lot, Kedar, for clarifying that. Speaking of restoration, there are some questions about reference sites. So I think somebody had asked what your reference site was, and specifically, Vivek is asking, what is the restoration point which we are intended to achieve? In the history of humanity, a lot has changed, especially since the colonial period. When we decide to restore, which reference year or decade is chosen from documented history?
Well, we have not gone back to documented history of that site, but definitely reference sites are forest patches which are intact forest patches which are nearby. I mean, we are looking at a landscape which is a forest basically, and that's a reference point for us. It may have been, I don't know, 100 years ago what it was. We haven't really looked at that, but currently it's a forest department land. It's a forest that was there and that is there in the nearby areas as well. And that's how we want to recreate. That's all.
Got it. Thanks, Kedar, and thanks, Vivek. Um, we have a question from Aman, who first of all thanks you and for your amazing work and says it's quite interesting. His question is, does the renewed presence of tigers and leopards near villages not cause any discomfort and differences? I'm assuming local villagers won't be too happy about predators roaming around.
Yes, it's a very important observation. And we also have realized that this may create a problem in future. And therefore, we have already, started having meetings with the villagers and informing them about the presence of these animals. Uh, there could be a possibility unless people really venture into these areas at night. I don't see any conflict happening because these areas uh, tigers and leopards they prey on livestock in most of these places. There is also pretty much good amount of prey base, natural prey base in this area. I mean, even spotted deer and sambar and chinkar and even barking deer have come into our camera traps. So these animals are there in the forest, and yeah, but if people venture into these restoration plots at night, there is a chance that there would be human wildlife conflict. And therefore, as a preventive measure, we have started taking meetings and informing them of what is present in these areas. And when these meetings are conducted, forest department personnel are part of it. And so it's informative information that is shared with the people regularly. But we hope and keeping fingers crossed that no such incident happens in the future.
Thanks, Kedar. So Hannah wants to know if somebody is interested in such projects, how do they get involved? So maybe you can answer for your project. If if there's a restoration program or if um, wait, I'll just read it out. What are the ways an individual interested in restoration get involved in such projects? Join an organization that does restoration programs or apply for funding.
So there are uh, various ways an individual can take part. First, if he or she is uh, associated with any corporate that that under its CSR can take up projects like this, and that person can influence the boardroom decisions into getting some funds for restoring ecosystems. I wouldn't say only forest. There are other ecosystems that need restoration work, as Arjun previously said, a grassland ecosystem, wetlands, and all these ecosystems are having, degradation of various levels. So if somebody can influence the boardroom decisions, that would be the best part. If not, then on an individual level, you can at least collect seeds of native trees of that area. It could be, in Madhya Pradesh, you would have a set of trees that are found in maybe Western Ghats, maybe a different species of trees. But if you collect seeds of this species and then provide those seeds to the implementing agency, probably if you can raise nursery on it on your own in your gardens, and then provide some saplings. That would also help. It may be a small help, but a very significant help, because many times we have faced the shortage of getting good quality saplings. And if we have that from somebody who wants to help us out, we will be more than happy. A lot of people have also expressed interest previously where uh, as a part of their employee engagement, people want to come and plant trees. We welcome that. In the next planting season, which would be sometime in end of June or July, I mean, people can come and plant their saplings of their choice, and have a great bonding with that area which you have helped restore. So that's also a possibility. If somebody is good in, say, a wildlife biologist, and if he or she wants to, provide skill help in doing wildlife surveys, we are more than happy to take that help. And I mean, we can even have one-to-one discussion on this and maybe have more elaborate answers to be given. But in a forum like this, I think I've given whatever I could.
Thanks, Kedar. Actually, Sana, that's lovely advice, and I can personally vouch that seed collection and native species, especially collecting seeds, is a very satisfying experience. So if you haven't done that already, do give it a try. Okay, that there are some more interesting sociological questions. So we'll take one or two of those. And there is one about grazing. So Oman is asking, is livestock grazing going to be allowed after the tripartite agreement ends, or is that part of land going to remain permanently fenced?
Yeah, so land will remain fenced. Fencing will never be removed, but livestock grazing will never be allowed. But people have already started seeing the benefits of stall feeding, and therefore, regularly, even after 5 years and 6 years, people are going and collecting grass and feeding their livestock. So, yeah, but it's a forest department norm that fencing will never be removed. Uh, I've seen forest department plantations which were done maybe 10 years ago or something. They still have, the rusted uh, fencing there. It's necessary to have fence, I would say. Free livestock grazing is one of the most ecologically damaging activity, I would say, if it's uncontrolled, and most of the time it is uncontrolled, and therefore this activity also has led to actually forests being degraded in many of these areas. And therefore, it is necessary to have this control. In fact, we should talk a lot more about stall feeding of livestock by the communities. It may be a complete change in the way they have been living all these years. However, that change will definitely be a welcome change and help uh, in preventing forest degradation in the coming future.
Thanks, Kedar. Thanks for that. We have a very interesting question coming from Parul, and she's asking, how do projects ensure that local communities are actively involved in decision making and governance?
So it's a very interesting and very important question, actually. As I said, from day one, before we get into the project mode, the community has to be involved. And that's what we do, meeting with the community, convincing them as to why we are doing it. Uh, Obviously, it won't be in a one meeting. Those who have had the experience of talking to the community will realize that it's a huge effort to actually convince them to do something which they have not been doing in last several hundred years. So it takes time. But the first time we did, it was extremely difficult. But now it is a bit easy because we can take help of some of the villagers who are doing it and make them speak to other, their uh, other villagers who are from other villages. And if they hear it from the horse's mouth that yes, it has benefited, it helps, this is how it works, then our going is easy for that project. But it takes time, and it is a great deal of effort that one has to take. But it's a very important thing and the first step. Without involving community, I repeat, no conservation project will ever succeed, and this will never succeed. Therefore, that's the first step of any restoration work.
Thank you, Kedar, for clarifying that. there is a question from Linkeshwaran, who thanks you for your insightful presentation. And he's wondering about the role of forest fires in the context of forest restoration. His question is, do fires hinder restoration efforts in Madhya Pradesh, or are there any cases where controlled burns help in regeneration? Could you share any observations or strategies related to this?
So very important question. We have started, I mean, this year we have started creating some fire lines. The work will start very soon, or it has started in some areas. So far, we have not experienced any such incidences of forest fire. The reason is uh, it's fenced and no trespassing is allowed anyways. People who come there only come there under our supervision and collect the fodder. Now, all forest fires, to the best of my knowledge, are human induced in Central India, at least, certainly. Unless somebody goes inside, throws a half burnt BD or cigarette or, matchstick or whatever, or deliberately, lit a fire there, then there is a case of forest fire. There is no such thing as natural forest fire anywhere. And since people are not easily accessing these areas, so far there have been no incidences of forest fire for us. But as a precautionary measure, we are doing it because now the grasses are so dense in many areas. They are even passing through the fencing and going to the other side. So, I mean, if there is a fire outside, there is a chance that fire may spread inside the plots as well. So, yeah, as a precautionary measure, this will be done. But yeah, that's what I have to say.
Thanks for that, Kedar. Actually, when I saw the beautiful grasses coming up in your restored states, I also thought it's just what if it burns. But having said that, the last question would be about the role of the forest department. And someone by the name IM is asking, what kind of involvement of the forest department did you see in the actual restoration work? Uh, Part of the question is also, what were the limitations and advantages of the interactions with them?
So, Forest Department has been regularly monitoring the work that we are doing. Okay, right from whenever any activity was done, whether it was as you must have seen in the photograph, the identification of land itself was with them. If we want to fence the land, they would be there to see how we are fencing it. For digging of saplings, digging of pits, as I said, they have strict norms, so they would be there and see how we are doing it, and we are not floating those norms. So there has been very very rigorous follow and monitoring by the forest department, which we really appreciate. And I'm glad that they are taking interest, such kind of interest in the work that we do. And that helps us in actually, once, because a guard would come, forest guard would come, or sometimes the ranger comes, or even DFOs and CCFs and even senior officials have come. I mean, we have even had the opportunity of inviting APCCF and PCCF level officers. There are other line department officers like commissioners and collectors who have come and seen the work that we have done. In fact, Forest Department uh, in our schedule has been extremely supportive, and the DFO there has been so supportive. He has actually gone ahead and talked to many of his batchmates about the work that we have done. And I mean, that kind of support is phenomenal. It's very easy. If we have a support like this, it's very easy to work in the field. Otherwise, things can get really very difficult because if there is no support. But fortunately, Madhya Pradesh Forest Department, hats off to them. Their support and proactiveness in getting all these things done is really, really highly appreciated. And definitely it's an advantage of, as I said, we are talking to other batchmates, they're talking to collectors. And in India, there is a lot of land which is categorized as the revenue-based land. And if in future, I'm really hoping, and I would put it out on record, that if there is any kind of inclination of the revenue department to take up plantation like this for whatever reasons, for carbon sequestration or getting the carbon markets attracted or whatever. But creating forests on revenue lands would be great opportunity to have many more restoration work. I mean, it's not just forest. In other areas, it could be grasslands, as I said, or even just open ecosystems. But revenue department can also be involved. Yeah. So having government support at various levels is a great benefit, and it has worked in our favor.
Thank you. Thanks, Kedar, for sharing that. I think our relationships with the forest departments are, it's something that many members of our community, it confounds them. It's an issue that keeps coming up again and again. And the MP Forest Department's collaboration with you and their support, it's something that gives us a lot of hope. To everyone here, I'm truly sorry. I know that there's tons of more questions, and they really are quite interesting questions. And if we had more time. Okay, then I guess we can call this wonderful presentation a close. And once again, thanks, Kedar, and everyone. Thank you, everyone, for
My pleasure.
taking time out and coming to this presentation. And yeah, see you some other time.
Thank you. Thanks, ERA, for organizing this, and all the participants. There were, I think, more than 80 or almost 90. Thanks for being here and listening patiently to what I said, and looking forward to being in touch. Please do help in restoring ecosystems as much as you can. Thank you very much.